welcome to Drupal Nights by BioRAFT. Tonight we have Chris Wells, a passionate person about the Drupal community, and he's going to share with us how you can contribute as well. Come on up.
So I call this presentation Intro to Contributing, or How Can I Help? It kind of comes from my story, and I have been involved with the Drupal community for a long time, long-ish time. Our first Drupal website was in Drupal 4.7, and community-wise, that's kind of, you know, I'm an old timer in some respects. So, so we use Drupal. We use it a lot. We actually use it exclusively. Our firm only does Drupal websites, and we knew we need to give back, and we really didn't know where to start or how to get involved, and it really took me a very long time in the grand scheme of things to start contributing and working with the project. And so what I found the two sort of biggest stumbling blocks for me was the sort of almost the social aspects of contributing. A lot of us are a little geeky maybe sometimes and have trouble with some of that. I definitely do. And so for me, I looked at the two issues of like, I don't want to participate in the issue queue, which is really where the bulk of the work gets done. And I don't want to participate there because I either don't want to look silly, or people are going to be mean to me, or whatever it is. And I didn't want to do that. And that was kind of a stumbling block there. So a lot of my presentation is about today demystifying the issue queue, helping you understand it, and help you understand what sort of unwritten sort of social constructs exist there. And then IRC is the other side of the coin of like getting help sort of in real time. Everyone that you talk to, they say, well, my best help is in IRC. That's the best way that I can get in touch with people or ask my questions, but I don't know how to use it. It's kind of geeky, it's very technical, and there's a lot of these sort of unwritten rules about how you participate in IRC, which is Internet Relay Chat. It's chat rooms, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So so that's my journey. My firm is Redfin Solutions. We're based in Portland, Maine. We started right here in Boston as a organization that was just moonlighting and doing web stuff sort of on the sly, and so our roots are here in the city. And I'm CO on Twitter and cwells on Drupal.org, and I'm CO on IRC as well. So cwells is just too common of a name that I usually can't get that handle anywhere. I lucked out on Drupal.org, but I use these weird letters everywhere else that I go. So that's me. So to get started contributing with Drupal, there's two worlds where you can kind of contribute. You can contribute if you have a development environment set up, and you contribute even if you don't have a development environment set up. The Drupal ladder is probably one of the best resources for getting started, and it is at drupalladder.org. And the idea of climbing the Drupal ladder is about getting all of the foundation laid to start contributing and start helping out. One of the biggest pieces of that is knowing and understanding and getting Git installed. Git is the version control system that Drupal uses to manage the source code. So if you've ever used any other version control systems like SVN, CVS, Mercurial, Bazaar, Star Team Workstation, Visual Source Safe, these are all version control systems. Git is the version control system of choice for the Drupal project. And the other big piece that you need sort of software-wise is to get an actual development environment installed. If you're going to run and debug a PHP application, you need to have PHP. You need to have a web server that's serving that PHP. And for Drupal, you need to have a database server behind it. So that whole package of software, which is really 3-4 applications, is your AMP stack. And the Drupal ladder, some of the rungs of climbing that ladder are about getting an AMP stack set up on your machine. So this is to like get the Drupal application or whatever the module is that you want to work on, and this is to run it. And Drupal Ladder helps you do that. Now, there are a lot of issues that don't require these tools at all. There's a lot of places where you can chip in and help in this community that is not that. You can review patches, and you can test patches, and you can work on documentation issues, and none of this stuff really needs this whole setup to begin with. So a lot of people don't know that, and they focus on this first piece of like, oh, I've got to learn Git. I can't do anything, I can't help the Drupal project until I know Git. And that's a little bit of a myth, so I want to help dispel that. Also, as far as an entry point for getting your feet under you with the Drupal project specifically, this is probably, if you remember nothing else, if you can't get a hold of my slides are link rich, so I want to make sure I share them so you can click the links. But this one is easy to remember, so if you never get these slides again, drupal.org/novice is the handbook page for getting started with contributing. And it's rich with links off to other places where you can get started contributing. The other real big arena, and this again has a lot to do with my personal journey, is finding a mentor in the Drupal community who can help you. On IRC, there is formal mentoring set up. It happens 10 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday nights and noon Eastern on Wednesdays. And if you look this up at this link, Core Office Hours, that's what they're called, office hours. Because it's that same idea like when you're at university and you need to meet with your professor, they have this open window when you can come and talk to them, and it's very much like that. So mentors are on IRC waiting to help people during these hours. If you look on this page, the times are in Greenwich Mean Time or UTC or something, and I'm pretty sure I converted them right, but check this link before you go in there. Also, Drupal mentoring is on Twitter, so most of you, if you don't have IRC, you may have Twitter.
Which IRC room is that in? Is it in Drupal or?
Yes, it is in Pound Drupal. It's in the main Drupal on Freenode. And we'll get into IRC a little bit deeper, but good question. The core mentoring happens just in the main Drupal channel. And one of the biggest things that I will impress upon you about getting a mentor is to ask someone. If you identify someone who you think might be a good mentor for you, just ask them. Easier said than done, but it really works. A lot of people want to be mentors and never get asked. So if you think that there's someone who can help you, feel free to ask them. I'll say that how it really happened for me, what flipped the switch between not contributing at all to starting to contribute, was I gave a presentation about Drupal 8 at Drupal Camp New Hampshire last year. Kay Van Valkenburg walked up to me out of the blue. We chit-chatted about some things, and then he asked me, hey, we do this sprint for the RDF initiative in Core. It's every Tuesday at 4 p.m. And you know, if you know a little bit about Drupal 8, maybe you'd like to get involved. And I actually said, hey, I only know enough about Drupal 8 to give this presentation. I'd love to learn more. And Stefan Korlusket, who many of you probably know, runs that RDF initiative sprint. And between Kay and him being very welcoming, they were able to really hold my hand, help me identify issues that I could work on. And that's one of the biggest hurdles. And the mentor will hold your hand and carry you over those hurdles more than probably anything else. So that's probably a large piece of advice in here. So I want to get into that first part of it about understanding the issue queue. So this is more like a reference slide, so don't worry about this, but there is the issue queue handbook. So it's in the main Drupal.org, you click that documentation tab, that's the Drupal handbook. If you get down, ultimately you find your way to node 317, that's all about the issue queue. All the documentation about how the issue queue works technically is there. All the issues are just at Drupal.org project issues, that's where you get to the issue queue. And this is a helpful one. This is about how to write a good issue. And we'll sort of talk about the tenets of writing a good issue as we move on. So when it comes to issues, the first thing that you want to know is, am I the first person to figure this out or think this is an issue? Typically that answer is no. So searching the issue queue and understanding how to get at it and see if the issues that are there are the issues that you're seeing is really should be step one. Search for it first. So, and you may search for it to find one to work on, or you may be searching for an issue to see because you're about to file one. It doesn't really matter. So to search for an issue, this is in the realm of, I want to work on something. I want to contribute. I need to find an issue. If you want to use the advanced search, you will need an account on Drupal.org. So if you don't have an account on Drupal.org, sign up for one. That's probably step 0 in the process here. So, and then the novice tag is there for novices, and we'll see that as we get into the queue. But there are, if you know Drupal, there's taxonomy and tags, and there's a tag for issues that's novice, so that if it's something you want to get your feet wet, they're pre-tagged for starting to contribute or getting involved. So, link about how to find yourself an issue if you're a novice. This is a link, intro to the novice queue. So I think WebChick, Angie Byron was involved with helping novices to start contributing, and this is an initiative that's a few years old. So she wrote up sort of, okay, the novice queue is here, here's how you use it. So a good blog post there, and you can link straight off to the novice queue in there as well. So if you are filing a new issue, so you think, okay, I've got a bug here. I'm trying to save a node, and every time I save it, I get a white screen and it doesn't save my node. So I've got a problem here. So step 1, do try troubleshooting first. And there is a list of basic troubleshooting steps here that you should try every time. Logs to look at. Did you flush your caches? I'll tell you, 80% of your issues can be resolved by flushing caches sometimes. Also, 70% of statistics are made up on the spot. So, flush your caches, do all your troubleshooting, run that stuff first, because nobody wants to find out that it's, you just are running the wrong version of PHP or whatever it is. Don't duplicate issues. This is where we get into those unwritten social constructs. Duplicate issues are, every time you duplicate an issue, God comes for the kittens. So don't do that. Search first. So use that advanced search. Try to hone in. Try to find exactly, this person is seeing what I'm seeing, or is very close to it. So always do a search first. Try to find something that's as similar as you can. At a certain point, you have to make a judgment call. Yes, this is the issue I'm seeing, or no, mine is different enough that I'm going to file a new issue. Mechanisms exist for marking tickets as duplicates if someone else decides, no, it really is the same. So I don't have a lot of good advice about when you should lean in one direction. Probably if there's an existing issue that's very close, probably my advice would be to comment there and say, hey, I'm seeing this, which seems very similar and related, and people in the queue will tell you that's separate, file a different issue. So don't be afraid to participate. Just make sure that you are clear that I have tried troubleshooting and I've tried to not duplicate an issue. I think this is similar. A little humility goes a long way with some of these geeks. And this is a big one. Do not file security issues in the normal issue queue. Security issues we try to keep in a separate private queue so that security issues can be handled before the report comes out. There is a separate process for that, which is available here. Also, you can always just go to, I think, security.drupal.org, and that's the intro and the portal into security issues. So if you think something is a security issue, like someone who doesn't have this permission is still being allowed to do X, or a cross-site scripting vulnerability, or anything that's really related to someone who's doing something they shouldn't be allowed to do, security issue. File that with the security team directly. All right, so one of the biggest fields that we see when we're filing an issue or searching for an issue is these categories. So the bug report is probably one of the larger ones. The bug report is really if the behavior that I'm expecting is not happening, that's a bug. Now, it may be that your expectations are wrong, in which case we'll invalidate the bug, but typically if you're thinking like, I should save this node and be redirected to the node page I just saved, and instead you're getting a white screen, bug report. Your expected and your actual are not matching up. Okay. So a task is then something that is more of a general, well, this thing needs to be done, but it's not necessarily a bug report. Tasks are really good for documentation issues, or I need to create a branch for my 9x version of the module, or whatever it is. Tasks are just sort of general work to do. Feature requests are just that. This module or core or whatever it is in the project, I wish it also did this. It doesn't do it, it's not supposed to do it, but if it did, it would be really cool. An example of this, and I'll come back to this example a few times, the commerce, PayPal, so Drupal Commerce is the e-commerce suite for Drupal, and there's a commerce web payment standard connector for PayPal, so that's when you go and you build a card on your site, and then you continue and you go off-site to PayPal and you finish checking out. The way that Commerce does that is it takes your whole cart, even if it's got 15 products in it, and it sends it over to PayPal as order number 47 at the store with the total. Some people use PayPal on the other side to fulfill their orders, so they need the item level detail. The module doesn't do that. It just consolidates it into one line item and ships it to PayPal. A feature request, and it exists out there in the wild, is can we send the line item detail of the cart over to PayPal as well? So we'll add an option to say which do you want to send, the summary version or the line items. That's a feature request. It's something new that I wish this module did, or I wish Drupal core could do for me. And then a support request is really, it's not necessarily about the module. This might be to help clarify the expectations, because you don't know if you're going to file a bug report. Just how is this module or Drupal core aspect, how is this supposed to work? Either there's not enough documentation, or the documentation is unclear. I'm filing an issue in the queue for support. Can you help me understand this? Now, if it's fundamentals and basics about how a module works, I would say try IRC first or try the forums first. But if you think that it might lead to a bug or a task, like the documentation is very unclear or missing, sometimes there'll be people, new module comes out, there's no readme.txt, there's not really a lot of documentation for it. Maybe you see a support request come up for, how is this supposed to work? And then the dialogue happens, and then it ends up getting converted to a task of create a readme.txt and use these comments to generate it, you know, of how this thing works. So bugs are probably the majority shareholder of issues that we see in the queue, I think. I didn't do there's no scientific analysis behind that, but bug report is largely what we think of when we think of the issue queue. Okay. Priority. This is a big one, especially when you're filing an issue because something's not working right and you're probably a little frustrated by that. So it's urgent to me doesn't necessarily always mean that it's urgent or that it's a substantial issue. So critical, there's very sort of hard and fast lines for these. A critical issue renders the entire system unusable. If it does not render the entire system unusable, it is not critical. The only thing to remember is what is the scope of my entire system. So if this is a contrib module, so let's say there's a bug in views and it renders all of views unusable, that's the whole system. The system is the scope of the project that you're interested in. So even inside of Drupal core, there are modules like the RDF module. If the entire RDF module is not usable because of this issue, that's critical. It doesn't mean your entire site has to go down or white screen. The only other thing that could be considered critical, I believe, is data loss. So if there's a bug that actually causes you to lose data out of your database, even though it's not rendering the system unusable, that's a critical issue. Data is important to us, and issues like that we think are critical. One example is there was actually a regression in a Drupal core security update that came out for Drupal 7 a few months back, right before D4D, maybe in the summer, where actually if you had an image field attached to a taxonomy term, and you saved that term, it erased your image. it killed it. And so that's a critical issue. It's not rendering the entire system unusable, but it is causing data loss. So that's critical. So major is sort of the next step under. And the easiest way to think of that is if it renders a subsystem unusable. So views RSS feeds doesn't work, or the views UI module breaks. A subsystem of your system is unusable. That's major. Normal is sort of falls down to everything else. So it's not rendering anything unusable per se, but it's a bug. My expected and my actual aren't the same. So that's normal. Minor falls down to things that really don't necessarily need to be taken care of with great haste. So a lot of stuff that gets relegated to minors are maybe color changes, style changes, documentation type issues, which is somewhat unfortunate, to be honest. Documentation is pretty important, but that's sort of how it kind of breaks down. Status is one of the third fields on an issue. And this is an incomplete list. There's a lot of stati on the issue queue. So active is kind of the first initial status. When you create a new issue, it starts out active. And one of these slides I have sort of a bug life cycle slide, but it starts out at active. What typically happens then is someone comes along and decides, okay, I'm going to do something about this bug. So typically that would be, I'll upload a patch that I think solves this problem, and I'll mark that patch needs review. Hey, I think I've got a solution. That's needs review. Needs review does two things. It tells other people, hey, I need you to come in and look at my code. And the other important thing is it triggers the test bot to test your patch automatically. Your patch might break something else somewhere in Drupal, and we have automated testing in place to see if that is actually the case or not. So needs review is important when you upload a new patch that you think is ready to go. So then what will happen is probably someone will come along, review your code, and say, it's a pretty good approach, but you need to change something. Or your coding standards were not met. The Drupal coding standards weren't met or something. So they'll put it back to needs work. So that means, hey, we've made some progress here, but I've looked at it and we need to make a little bit more progress. Typically then what will happen is someone will come along and, I changed this and I shouldn't have. We'll RTBC it. So everyone calls it RTBC and I never knew why, because it's reviewed by the community. It's not. It's reviewed and tested by the community. So I have it backwards on my slides and I apologize. And Krell corrected me when I gave this at D4D, Larry Garfield. I was fortunate enough that he was in there with me. So that's typically what happens. Okay, I think this is good. Other people who are really in charge of this have said, okay, this looks good, reviewed and tested by the community. This is good from our perspective. So then finally maybe a Drupal core committer or the module maintainer will come along and say, do a final review, and then maybe mark it back to needs work, or if it looks good, they'll go ahead and commit it, and when it gets committed, it gets closed. However, there are many flavors of closed. There are closed won't fix. There is closed duplicate. There is, I don't know, those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head, but there's like 9 of them. This is important. If you come along into the issue queue and you find an issue that is closed, think really long and hard before you decide to reopen a closed issue. Really read the comments, really understand how it ended up closed, and make sure that if you're going to reopen it, that all the criteria is met for reopening it. And what I mean by that is, let's say it's closed, fixed, that's another status, Closed fixed means, okay, I've committed this. Maybe it was really recent and it's only in the -dev version and they haven't rolled another point release. So let's say the bug was fixed after Vue 7x 3.16 and you're on 7x 3.16 and you're still seeing the bug. Don't reopen the issue if that's the case, or you may receive some flack in the issue queue for that. So just be very careful when you're reopening an issue. Make sure that you really understand it, and again, a little humility. I'm not saying that you should never reopen a closed issue, because there are definitely valid reasons for it. But a common pitfall is to reopen closed issues because you read the summary, you say, I have this too, and you scroll down to the bottom and reopen it, and you haven't read the history in between, which is really important. All right, and then there are a few other fields that we can look at. I'm going to actually look at issues and look at the issue queue, so I'm going to talk about these things when they're right in front of us. Another field that you'll see in the issue queue are tags. Here's what you really need to worry about. Do not create a new tag unless you have been asked to or are the project maintainer. Okay? So the tags are just a way of organizing things, but if you've ever used a Drupal site that had free tagging, you know that that vocabulary can get out of control very quickly, even with typos and with people making up things that make sense to them. So in general, as a novice, don't create a new tag unless if it's your project and your contributed module, you can make up as many tags as you want. That makes sense to you. That's generally what you want to know. The other important thing is that there is a tag for novice. I mentioned that before, but I'll mention it again. Okay. So the issue summary is the meat and potatoes of this whole thing. So everything I've talked about thus far is stuff that appears in little drop-down menus that you can kind of choose, or a little tag field. But the issue summary is the body field of the issue. And it literally is. I mean, this whole thing's obviously built on Drupal, so it's the body field. So minimally, an issue summary should detail the actual versus the expected behavior. Here's what I'm seeing. Here's what I think I should be seeing. Is my expectation wrong, or is this really a bug? Whatever it is, and include steps to reproduce it. There is no such thing as an issue with too much information. Okay, so if you think it's a PHP error, tell them your PHP version, maybe your MySQL version, maybe exactly the steps you need to take to cause this white screen. Maybe it only happens if you have two vocabularies that are both free tags, or maybe it only happens if you choose the sandbox version of the PayPal gateway, or whatever it is. Whatever the criteria is, you need to include. Because what really happens is that someone takes a clean copy of code, installs it all clean, and then tries to follow your steps to reproduce it. Because the first thing that, I'll just use myself as an example, as a lazy module developer, what I want to do is rule out that it's my fault as fast as I can. So the way I do that is I take clean code and a clean database and see if I can do what you said I should be able to do. And if I can't, then everything else in the system, in your system, is what could be at fault. The other modules you have installed, etc. So you might iterate on sort of figuring out what those steps are to reproduce. So you may have to go in and disable all your other modules, or disable a bunch of modules and slowly re-enable them. Maybe this only happens when you have Taxonomy Vocabulary Manager also enabled. So we need to get down, and the first thing that a developer wants to do is reproduce your issue, see what you're seeing. So you'll generally iterate until that happens. Then there's a tool called Dredditor I'll mention, but there's issue summary templates, and these are available without Dredditor. Dredditor's just nice because it can inject them for you. When the issue gets complicated or has a lot of comments, or cannot otherwise be understood quickly, it's a good idea to go back and edit the top level issue, the body, put it in this nice clean template that they have that's like 4 subheadings, and re-explain where are we today. So maybe you've gotten through 57 comments and there's been a lot of discussion happening. You may go back and update the issue summary to sum up, from now till comment 57 what's happened. And that's a good thing to do. So if we were to actually roll up our sleeves and get involved with this, above the line here is a lot of stuff that you can do that doesn't even require the development environment. So you can review or test patches that are marked needs review. And you can work on documentation issues, but I really like this one. Maintaining the issue queue itself is often overlooked and often falls to the module developers or the core developers to do, but is something that you can do. So when we talk about maintaining the issue queue itself, we're talking about looking for duplicates, looking at all the issues for a module and saying, well, I think these two are pretty much the same thing, so I'm going to pull some commentary in here and I'm going to mark the other one as a duplicate and link back to this one. I might update, just like I just said, update the issue summaries for some longer issues where it's really hard to understand it without reading the full comment history. Maybe I'll go back and update it and write a good summary for that. Maybe I'll do that while I'm marking things as duplicates. Maybe I'll find really old issues and see if I can reproduce it on a clean install now. And maybe that's an issue that we need to ping someone on because we can close it and it's not an issue anymore. It's been fixed, but it just hasn't gotten any love in the issue queue. So maintaining the issue queue itself is a great way to contribute with nothing more than a web browser in front of you. And then updating and re-uploading your own patch, I'm going to try and take you through that, a little bit of like a mini process of that. And then this is what I wish was a few slides back, but this is kind of how the process really works, is you get an issue, you make an attempt at solving an issue, so you're going to create a patch that solves that issue, and you're going to submit that patch for review. And then this is the one where the diagram doesn't do it justice because this should be repeated maybe 17 or 18 or 47 times. You submit it and you get it back to get a little bit more work done. And you submit it and you get it back to get a little more work done. And a lot of times what happens is I submit a patch and then I forget about it, or I go away, or I'm on vacation. Someone else takes it over. So this doesn't have to be like the module maintainer and one guy going back and forth, or girl, sorry, going back and forth with those. It might be a lot of different people, and especially with some of these really hot core issues, it is a lot of people putting their hands in. So, all right. So, getting help on IRC. There are rules. Internet relay chat. You need a client to connect. So this is an old school chat server. I mean, this is one of the oldest technologies on the internet. You need a client to connect. There are browser plugins. So CIRC is an IRC client available for Chrome. Chatzilla is an add-on for Firefox. I use Adium on OS X, and I use Pigeon on Windows and Linux. Both Adium and Pigeon are based on the same library underneath, Purple library. And Merc is a good one on Windows. They say Merc, I think. There's a bunch of others. There's lots of these. There's a web-based one, I think it's either Mibit or Meebo, or it could be both of those. And XChat on Linux. There's a lot. Really what matters is, can I fire up one of these applications and connect to the right server, get on the right place? So there is a link, drupal.org/IRC. There is a handbook page for that. So another easy one to remember, /IRC. So the rules. Ask in the right channel. So there's different chat rooms for different things. And for a project as big as Drupal, there's a lot of different channels. So there's one called Drupal Support. That's where you might ask deep dive questions about support with a specific issue you're having. Drupal Themes, there is a Drupal Mentoring channel, which is more about talking about the mentoring program. There's channels around different initiatives. There's a Drupal Commerce channel, Drupal RDF channel. There's a lot. And that /IRC, drupal.org/IRC will give you the top level overview of all the channels and what their main topic is. The one that should really be kind of your entry point is pound Drupal or hash Drupal. It's the thing above the 3, whatever you want to call that, pound, hash, number sign. All the channels on Freenode start with a number sign or a hash. So hash Drupal is really the landing page for, I want to get involved with the community and I want to chat with them. Start there. It's for general chit chat, quick questions, any of that. And you can always ask there, here's my question, what's the most appropriate channel? If you don't think it's the Drupal channel. But you can always start in the Drupal channel first. Don't ask to ask, okay? So, rookie mistake. You pop into IRC, you're in pound Drupal, and you say, can anyone help me with this issue I'm having with views? You've wasted electrons doing that. The way that the sort of etiquette dictates is you hop into the channel and you go, hey, I'm trying to save a views CSV, and every time I download it, it's 0 bytes. It's like if I ran in this room and just yelled that out. It's weird, but that's how it works in chat rooms, because there isn't actual yelling going on. It's just text flowing by, and it's not really that intrusive. So what happens, by the way, is if you ask to ask, you'll get a passive-aggressive factoid directed at you by a robot named Druplicon, okay? And someone else will do it. So Druplicon is a computer. Pro tip here. A lot of people go in and they say hello, and Druplicon, the robot, automatically says hello back to you, and then you ask Druplicon a question, and everyone knows you're a noob. So if you get nothing else out of this presentation tonight, you go in knowing that you're ahead of a lot of other people. So Druplicon is a robot. It's automated intelligence, and it's actually a Drupal module that's running it. So don't ask to ask. Use nicks at the start of your question. So everyone has a screen name, and on IRC they're called nicks or nicknames. So my nick on IRC is SCEO. I say CO. I don't know if that's how I pronounce it. So if you were in a chat room, let's say you hopped in and you yelled your question, I can't download a views CSV, and someone answers you. Now I'm talking kind of in this public forum. So we're all in this room, but I'm talking to Michelle because she just answered my question. Oh, I'm glad you've had this issue too. When we're in a room, I can look at you and you know that I'm talking to you. But when text flows by your screen, you don't know that. So use a nick at the start. So if I were addressing Michelle in IRC, I would use, do you say Mish when you pronounce the nick? So Mish, colon, or Mish dash, whatever, and then I would type directly to her. And that means everyone else who's reading as it goes by knows that, okay, I'm directing this at her. Other people are still welcome to sort of, just like at a party, sort of listen in that conversation and maybe jump in and help out. Maybe they want to help. But also the reason that's good is because most chat clients, if you say someone's name in chat, they'll get a notification. So my little adium, the little duck wings start flapping, and I get a little pop-up notification when someone says my name in a group chat. So it's good because otherwise, other text in a group chat generally won't send a notification, because otherwise you'd be getting a ton of notifications. Okay? And the last thing is PMing someone. So this is private message. Don't private message someone without their permission. You can totally do it. It's totally valid, but you have to ask first. It's just good netiquette, which is a word before I gave this presentation I hadn't used in about a decade and a half. So good netiquette, don't private message someone. Typically the way you do this, like in Adium, I see a list on the right of everyone who's in the chat room, and so I can just double click on Mish and boom, I've now got a private chat open with her. But you don't do that unless she knows to expect it. So you'll want to ask them, can I, and you can just say Mish, colon, PM, question mark. She'll say, yeah, that's fine. And then you can private message someone. Typically you don't really need or want to do that unless you think you're going to be very verbose in the chat room. So, because otherwise you really want people to kind of follow your conversation because they can help you with your issue. Maybe if someone like that person at the party comes along and says, actually, I've had this issue. So, okay. Couple of plugs for a couple of tools that will help you work in the issue queue. Dreaditor.org. You can install a Chrome extension or a Firefox extension, probably Safari too, extensions that will help you work with the issue queue. There's a really cute sort of roll down effect to review a patch and review the diff of it and it's colorized. It can insert those issue summary templates for you. What else does Dreaditor do? Anything? Those are the two big things I use it for.
Testmate.
The what?
Simply testmate.
Oh, yes, and it provides a little link if you want to fire up has anyone heard of Simply Test Me? SimplyTest.me lets you spin up a Drupal install and even apply a patch against that Drupal install. So Dreaditor will give you a link that will automatically sort of take you to a pre-filled Simply Test Me with a patch so that you can test a patch without having to leave your browser or have an AMP stack. So you can test and review patches on another platform, another thing that you don't need the stack set up for to do. And then the Drupal QA Notifier Chrome extension, I forget who, I think it was written by someone at Lullaby, but I'm fuzzy on that. But remember I told you about these automated tests that run when you mark a patch as needs review? This Chrome extension will give you a desktop notification when the test is done running, because it takes a while to run. So you can kind of go away from the queue, work on something else, and eventually it'll just let you know, hey, your test is done running, and I don't know if it tells you if it passed or failed, but at least tells you it's done. So I'm not sure. Okay, so if there are any questions at this point, happy to take them. And how am I doing on time?
20 minutes.
Yes, all right. So I can take questions now, and then I'll probably demo through a little bit about patching stuff and that. And I can do a quick IRC demo as well. So anything up to this point that's unclear or, yeah?
So you've been talking a lot about contributing to core. Is there any difference to helping out with the contrib module instead, or do you follow the same guidelines?
Yeah, so in general, the guidelines from what I've talked about are largely the same. So unless the module maintainer sort of defines things differently, which would kind of be a bad idea, critical issues are still critical issues. You know, my contrib module is, God, everything's like going into core these days. So like the rules module, okay? So if the entire rules module is rendered unusable, that's still a critical issue. Again, it's knowing what your system is. A lot of the same rules apply. So the formatting guidelines. If you get something that's really long, you still want to file, clean it up and put an issue summary. A lot of people, if you're really interested in a particular module or you use it a lot or you know it really well, maybe that's where you can focus your efforts. If you know rules really well and you think the documentation could be improved, you could call that your own little arena. But a lot of what I'm talking about, it very much translates to a contrib module. And I'll do my demo with a contrib module and applying a patch and all that. And you'll see, but there's not a lot of difference between core and contrib, unless you're thinking of something specific, in which case I could.
There's one thing I can think of.
Yeah.
When you're contributing to core, you go to the regular issue queue. If you want to contribute to a specific module, it might be easier to go to the project page for the module and look at that project's issue queue, that module's issue queue, rather than going to the big, huge issue queue. Because there's no real way to say find me issues for a particular module from that major page. That's one difference, I think.
Yeah, I think there is, and it's just a terribly long list to deal with. So, good point. That's how I'll get through.
So, what do you do if you see, say, a security issue in an issue queue? How would you report that?
So, clandestineness is probably the best. So, there are security issues in the main issue queue. A lot of time, if there's a security issue for Drupal 8, that's not a huge issue because that's not out yet. So kind of being clandestine would be my advice there. So what I would do is I would immediately go to the security team's issue queue. So I'd go to security.drupal.org, follow the process for reporting. There is an email process for reporting. They tell it right on the homepage. So you can just send an email to the security team, they prefer that you file an issue in their queue on their site. So that's what, if it were me, that's what I would do, is I would say, here's the security issue I'm seeing, and by the way, this is in the public knowledge because I found it on this, public issue in the main issue queue. And I might be inclined to, I'm not as aware of their statuses, but I'd be more inclined to bump that towards a major or a critical because there's already been a public disclosure of it. And they're good about responding to issues that get filed in the queue very quickly because that's the point. So if that were my advice, that's what I would do rather than call attention to the issue and close it and say this is a security issue, it shouldn't be reported here. I would kind of leave it be and file the issue with the security team and let them take it from there because they're awesome. Anything else? Good. All right, so let's see how far I can dig down. Fairly readable here. What do you want to do? IRC first or patching and issues first? Any preference?
IRC.
Good. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I was going to do if no one said anything. All right.
On math, there's also colloquy, which is another popular
yeah.
one.
So is IRC.
What is it?
IRC.
IRC. Oh, IRSSY. IRSSI. IRC. All right, so I've got my partner's computer, so I've got ADM already configured to sign me in. I'm going to show, where is this? So I'll just add an account just to show you the screen. So you're looking for something like this. If you're using just an IRC client, ADM is a multi-chat protocol client, but if you're using just an IRC client, you'll get something pretty much like this. What is your nick? What is your host name? And what is your password? You only have a password if you've registered your nickname with the IRC server, which is something I totally recommend but won't cover for now. So really what matters is the host name and the nickname. So the host name for all the Drupal channels, you can just put in irc.freenode.net. And I'm going to give myself a nickname of Drupal Nights Demo and hope that no one else has picked that nickname on the server. And I will say, I think it should connect automatically. Okay, it just logged me in. And the problem is I'm signed in as Patrick as well. So let me disable that guy. Let's see if I can work this. Alright, I've probably hosed this up. I should have just stayed signed in as Patrick, but alright, Drupal Nights Demo. Then you need to join a group chat. All IRC will work with / commands, but if you use a nice GUI, it's a little bit nicer. So, like I said, all the channels start with a hash. So hash Drupal is the main channel. If I join that, I now see everyone that's in this channel. And there's a lot of people here. A lot of people sign into IRC and kind of hang out and largely ignore it unless someone says their name and they get a little notification, or they'll come in and read or whatever. So we can actually see here the channel's kind of dead. There's not a ton of activity happening here. Now, eventually, if DrupalCon's on, he might say hi back to me. Oh good, someone to chat with. So that, you probably can't hear it, but should theoretically give her a little ping, say, someone said her name. IRC demo at BioRAFT. Did I spell that right? Do you capitalize the R?
ARFT.
Good. I want to get your branding right when I do this.
Yeah.
Can I add
Thank you.
Drupal Nights.
Better than a C.
Full of people. Okay. So this is really it. So I wonder, is Drupalcon here? This is, so Drupalcon has things called factoids. Basically, if you say the factoid name with a question mark on it, he'll respond with the factoid. So this is what happens if you ask, hey, can I ask a question about this? Then some other guy who's watching is going to say, ask, question mark, and make Drupalcon spit this out to sort of remind you how things work. There's other factoids. There's other things. Hey, all right. Oh, lots of people now. There's like karma. You can tell things like Drupalcon. Tell Leslie G. I liked her presentation at Nerd Summit. So Drupalcon, next time Leslie G says something in this chat room, and she doesn't even have to be signed in right now, but next time she says something in this chat room, Drupalcon's cute, throwing confetti because someone said yay. So next time Leslie says something, Drupalcon will tell her that. There's karma. Drupalcon. I'm not sure if this is the syntax to ask, but yeah, there you go. So like IE6, for example, has a karma of -666.
That's IE6.
Internet Explorer version 6. Drupalcon karma CO. So that's me. Karma of 12. Typically what happens to like give someone karma is if you help them in the chat room, then I can do something like Leslie G++, which is cute and a nice, you know, if you know PHP or C or something, it's a construct to increment by 1 the karma of Leslie G. So we gave her a little karma for what that's worth. So there's cute things that Drupalcon does. But otherwise, this is kind of where you go and you might just ask, boom, just type your issue and see if anyone pings you. So the first few times, before you get really comfortable, just read everything that kind of goes by for a while, and then hopefully, so Tim talking to Albright, we have no clue what the context of that conversation is because we kind of jumped in.
It's actually
Yes,
BioRAFT.
Yes, what's BioRAFT?
Apparently
Oh,
BioRAFT
I
is
see. If you want any more info about BioRAFT, contact me.
there, but anyway.
Of course. All right, so in general, that's IRC. Again, I don't like to use the UI because I'm a geek, but there are other channels that you can join. So Drupal support. There's other different people in here, but also largely a lot of the same people in here. Another one just to know about is if you want help actually contributing, there is a Drupal contribute channel, which is all about, this is where you'd go if it were not office hours, and you might be like, hey, I really want to get started and I don't know how. People in Drupal contribute are there to help you sort of kind of all the time. So, all right.
This is like a throwback to the chat rooms of like
Absolutely.
1996.
This is. We never left it. The hardcore geeks have stuck with it, and it is an invaluable tool in the Drupal community.
Share some stories.
Dangerous. All right, so I'll just do it here. So let's say I'm going to Drupal.org. I don't even know how to find this. It's a sandbox module, so I'm just gonna, turns out I need to rename this because there is an easy CSS project that's totally unrelated to Drupal that's like a CSS framework. And so now I gotta rename this thing. But we have a distribution of Drupal that we kind of use internally. It has like 4 types of content on it. That's kind of it. But we have designers who are really good at like just CSS, but don't get involved in the templates, don't do anything like that. So I was like, how is there a way that I can give like these two people, these design partners that we work with, access to the CSS and really nothing else? So I wrote kind of like a CSS injector on steroids, and I get the general impression this is probably horribly insecure, which is, I've just kind of left it in a sandbox to see if anyone would tell me it's horribly insecure. But anyway, now you know we're using it on a bunch of sites. So it's basically like that. What it lets you do is, I don't even know how I could sign in, but it basically gives you one big text area where you can type CSS, and you hit save, and it saves into your files folder, and it loads that CSS file as the last one in your cascade. And I use Code Mirror library to do syntax highlighting while you're doing it, so it's kind of cute and looks like an IDE. And one of the buttons is save, but one of the other buttons is validate, and it'll take your CSS and post it to the validator, so you can kind of know if you're writing good CSS. And that's kind of what it does, and that's all it does. It writes one file to your files folder that's CSS that gets loaded. So, you know, the obvious security implication is like, you don't want to give this to anyone because they could load a JPEG that could have some malicious code in it or whatever. But in general, we trust these design partners to a certain extent. They're sites that they largely build from a base template, so it's theirs to screw up. Anyway, so if you're wanting to get into the code and dive right in, on any project page, there's this version control tab, which gives you the instructions that you need to get started. If I was signed in, I'd be the maintainer of this module, and I could see a different set of instructions that would let me actually commit back to the repo. But since I'm not, this is just basically read-only access to the repo. The idea is you always get it read-only, you generate a patch, you upload a patch, and the committer, the maintainer, will actually put it back into the project, whether that's core or whether that's a contrib module. So what I could do is clone this. I'll get it going here. And now I've got this Drupal module that I can mess with and generate a patch. And it is in a Git repository, so I can start doing diffs and stuff. So I want to go quickly back to the actual issue queue. If you're on a project page, over here in the right-hand panel, this all issues, that will take you to the issue queue just for that project. So in Contribland, like Leslie was saying, you'll want to just sort of go right there. So here, you have to log in or register to create an issue, but these are a lot of the priorities and statuses and versions and all that. So what I might do is, I'm going to edit this guy. This to-do, I'm just going to delete it, save it back, and now you can see I've got this cute little shell helper that tells me if I've got a dirty work tree in Git. So if I do a git diff, oh, no, new line and end of file, you can see that the diff basically consists of me removing this line. So what I might do is, let's say there was an actual issue that I was filing this against, I would git diff this into a patch. The way that you'll the minimal way to name this is the issue number. I don't think issue numbers are that high yet. Issue number underscore, and then the comment number that you're about to make by uploading your patch. So if this is the first comment on an issue, it's _1. If you're about to upload comment number 45, you'll do 45. Generally, they also want you to include like the module name and a little bit about what you're doing. Remove to do. Name it a .patch. So now I've got this patch. The one thing to note is you may want to just move this patch very quickly out of your work tree and put it on your desktop or something so that you don't accidentally commit your .patch file back in. Or you could update a git ignore to ignore patches, or a global git ignore or something like that. So I've got this patch. What I would do is go into an issue, and I really should show you this, I guess, huh? Let's see if, yeah, I can't. I don't know my Drupal password. I use LastPass, and it's like some 16
log
character
into
string.
yours.
I don't know. Huh?
You can log into your LastPass.
He's got a keylogger running the curve.
He already knows everything. Yeah, good thought. Nope, that's not my name. That's mine. No. Oh, there it is. I'm gonna violate like every law that I can. Test issue. Category is a task because it's just removing a to-do. This is in code. I'm gonna assign it to me. It's normal. Might even be minor. This is a new one. Don't have any tags. Remove any to-do code if you're not going to do it. Okay? So if I save this issue, now I've got an issue number up here. So what I would actually do if I would move, that would actually become that -1.patch, something like that. So now I've got a comment. It's going to be the first comment because there's none. And I'll say this patch removes the to-do line. We decided we don't need to worry about line endings. I don't know. I think that's the it's about. So down here on files, you'll add a new file, and I've got to go grab it from wherever I just saved it. And it's in the wrong spot. So move. That's still not there. So what I would do is grab that. I've got this all going in a VM, but you just attach a file. I think if you use Drupal, you probably have used the file field on occasion before. And you add the file, and then in your comment, all this issue metadata is up here. So if you're just commenting, that's collapsed by default if you're just sort of weighing in. But since I have a patch that's actually being provided, I could mark this as needs review. And let's say there was a patch attached, I would just save it. That would trigger the test bot, that would do everything. And that's sort of the fundamentals of interacting with the issue queue. I see that I'm a few over, so I kind of blew through that. But hopefully it's preserved for all posterity on the YouTube channel. So, if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them. I know some people might be itching to get out, but I'm happy to hang out for a few minutes if you have questions. And thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Absolutely. What I missed?
I think that was awesome.
All right, if you say so.
So it sounds